All he's asking for is to play on the contract that he and the team agreed to
exactly
years ago. He's not asking for anything to change. The team wants something to change. So welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Monday, June the 5th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, Director of Published Content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network, and you can follow me on Twitter at Easton Freeze. I'm joined, as always, once again after a one-show hiatus, producer JT, who you can follow on Twitter at JT_Runke. JT, how you doing, man? How's your weekend?
I'm good. It was a good weekend. Happy Monday. Last thing this week, mandatory minicamps upcoming, and then we fully hit the NFL drought season.
And we get cast into the wilderness.
Yeah, I'm not too excited about that, to be honest, but it'll be an interesting time. We get one more week though.
Like the doomsday preppers we are, we have a decent cachet of things stored up to talk about.
We do.
That will last us some amount of time. Will last us the full 6 or 7 weeks before we get back to camp in late July. We'll see. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. We will find something to talk about at least once a week. I am mostly curious to see, like, I don't know. You and I haven't even discussed this. This is like a pre-show meeting we're doing on the air. Do we want to go to 2 shows a week? Do we want to go to 1 show a week? I don't know. Maybe we just feel it out. Just see what, you don't want to just put out nonsense content, but I don't want to disappear either. We got to keep the momentum going. So I'll tell you this, we're for sure doing at least 1 show a week through even the deadest time of the year. Anything more than that will be at our discretion, I suppose. But today, we do have this week, maybe our last week of content for the show that doesn't take a ton of effort and creativity on our part. We do have mandatory minicamp coming up, which we're going to dive into. That's the bulk of today's show. We're going to do a draft on what we are looking for at mandatory minicamp this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I will be there with the media. We'll get to see and talk to everybody on those 3 days. And it'll be a 3-show week today, just in terms of schedule, by the way. Today we'll do what we're looking for. On Wednesday will be kind of the halftime. What have we seen so far? Kind of a recap the first 2 days. And then on Friday, as usual, we will do our weekly recap, round everything up from the mandatory minicamp. And then that'll be kind of our last show, I think, of current events before we jump into some off-season topics. But before we get to that today, JT, unrelated to sports, but I do have to mention this because I just came from CVS picking up a prescription drug that I take. I go and get it every month, right? Very normal. It's a medication that I take that I have a prescription card, like discount card for, that my doctor gives me, that makes it $20 every month, $20 a month for 30 days worth of this medication. When I went today, I never knew what it would cost without the prescription card. I found out on accident today because they forgot to scan it when they rang me up. Do you want to know how much these 30 days worth of pills were going to cost me without this silly little card that my doctor gave me?
How much?
$997. She rang me up and said, that'll be $997 with a straight face. And I looked at her like, where's the punchline? What's the joke? It is unbelievable to me how expensive these medication companies choose to, they just try so hard to gouge you, because there's no shot it costs them more than maybe like $5 to make those 30 pills. Maybe.
Probably not. Yeah.
And it's not even I know, like when it's an insurance thing, that's one thing where it's like, the medical services are very expensive, but your insurance covers it. This medicine's not covered by my insurance. It's a third party thing. But with this silly little card that I don't know what the significance is. It's literally just a coupon that my doctor gives me. It takes $1,000 off of the total of this medication. It just blows my mind.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. I mean, I have, last time I went to go pick up my medication on the opposite side of the ball, mine cost 16 cents. And I was
16 cents.
Yeah.
What are you taking, Advil? Give me some of that. That's amazing.
And I was almost tempted to just run out to my car and get my little pennies and schmeckles that are in my car, and
hold
just
the line up behind you and start counting out coins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm gonna have a charge on my card from Walgreens for 16 cents. What are we doing?
Fraud.
I know, right?
Exactly. So I just thought I'd put that out there. That blew my mind today. That it with the silly little card I get from my doctor for free,
imagine forgetting
$20.
your card.
No, I know. Well, that's the thing. I have it on file, and I was worried, like, did they lose it? Because I don't know where this thing is. I gave it to them months ago. They better have it.
They hold it for
yeah,
you,
that's what
I
I'm saying.
guess?
Like, you guys have it on
Okay.
file. They forgot to scan it. But yeah, it kind of freaked me out because I was like, I'm not paying that. Like, I'll just I'll be ill. I don't need it. I would rather not be broke. But before we get into the actual topic today, we didn't on Friday's show. I just mentioned Brett Kern's retirement, which happened on Friday, I think, right? Or maybe it was Thursday. Thursday, I think, is when he had that press conference. But Brett Kern, a Titans great, retired. Need to give him his due. A little in memoriam segment here on the show. And I wanted to just read off some of the information on him and his career just to kind of recap what was. I mean, JT, you weren't probably paying a ton of attention to the Titans from 2011, 2012-ish until like 2016-ish when the J-Rob and Mike Vrabel era first began. But there were some years in there, a little Mike Mularkey, a little, I'm blocking his name out. Mike Wisenhunt, who was the shortest tenured coach for the team. I think he had an overall record of like 2-19 as a coach. Didn't even last 2 seasons. There were some dark days in there. And then who was playing quarterback for the Titan? It was clipboard Jesus, Charlie Wisenhunt. You had a little Fitzmagic in there for a second. It was tough. Little Jake Locker sprinkled in there, like bad times. Bad times.
Was there for a little bit, yeah. Like
who?
Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, Matt Hasselbeck.
That's like
end of career. Matt Hasselbeck spent some time there. It was a tough time for the Titans, and through all of that, there were a number of seasons where legitimately, without question, not even close, the best player on the team was the punter. He was like a top 1, 2, 3 at worst punter in the league on a team that was horrible. And maybe that kind of bolstered his stats because he played a lot. The dude was on the field often during those years. But let me read off what the Titans organization themselves emailed us in the media as kind of just a recap of his career. Said former Tennessee Titans punter Brett Kern will announce his retirement today, capping a 15-year NFL career. The University of Toledo product entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent with the Denver Broncos in 2008, spent 22 games with the club before being claimed off of waivers by the Titans midway through the 2009 campaign. I didn't know. I knew he started with the Broncos. I didn't know he was a waiver claim by the Titans. Apparently, and I don't know if this is uncommon or not, but as a punter, when he was put on waiver wires, it was Josh McDaniels' Broncos team. They started 6-0. And then I think Kern had like one Monday night or Sunday night football game where he shanked 2 punts and McDaniels just cut him. And I'm not saying it's because he cut Brett Kern, but I am saying they finished that season like 1-7 and missed the playoffs after starting 6-0. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's related, but I'm not saying it's not related. And then 4 teams put in a waiver claim for this dude. And the Titans were just bad enough to be the first team to get him. But imagine if they hadn't been, would have really changed the landscape of the Titans punting position. As a Titan, Kern became one of the most productive punters in the NFL, setting numerous club records and cementing himself as one of the best directional punters in NFL history. That's certainly how I'm going to remember him. He is one of, if not the best directional punter of our generation, which is, again, niche. And for football nerds like us, that matters. But for the average fan, probably not. There's only one punter in the Hall of Fame, Ray Guy. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer by any stretch of the imagination because frankly, I don't know how a special teamer like a punter gets into the Hall of Fame unless you're just the greatest thing that we've ever seen at the position.
Well, who knows? Kern maybe like Ryan Stonehouse just keeps breaking his record every single year that he plays.
That's really the only way I think you get in. I don't know how else you get in. You have to be freaking the best. You just have to be the dude. But I do think Kern should be a Titans Ring of Honor guy simply because of the fact that, again, there were like 3 or 4 seasons I can point to in the mid 2010s where he was, as a punter, legitimately the best player on the team, legitimately the only thing worth watching on the team. It continues over his 15-year NFL career. And if you ask CBS Sports, he spent all 15 of those years with the Titans, and the Titans are a new punter, by the way. He appeared in 223 regular season games and recorded 1,006 punts for 46,136 total yards with a 45.9 yard average, 396 kicks placed inside the opponent's 20-yard line. Kern saw action in 9 postseason contests and registered 41 punts for 1,800 yards. with 20 of those kicks placed inside the 20-yard line. He was named to 3 consecutive Pro Bowls from 2017 to 2019, earned first team Associated Press All-Pro honors in 2019, and was a 2-time team captain. How often is the punter a team captain? In 2020 and 2021. As a Titan, Kern placed his name at the very top of most of the franchise's records at his position. In 2020, he passed Craig Hentrich as the organization's all-time leader for punts. He concludes his career as the team's all-time career leader in punts with 923, all-time leader in gross average punting average, 45.9 yards, net punting average of 40.8 yards, and punts placed inside the 20, 373 total punts. Kern owns 9 of the top 10 net punting seasons in franchise history and 6 of the team's top 9 gross punting seasons. With 197 career games played with the Titans, Kern ranks 3rd in franchise history behind Bruce Matthews and Elvin Bethea. Wow, 3rd all time in most games played as a Titan. I did not know that one. His total is the most for any player during the franchise's Titans era since 1999. And then the quote from controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk: "I want to congratulate Brett on an amazing NFL career. He was a true professional and one of the important players who helped our organization reach the level of success that they have sustained for a number of years now. After being named to 3 Pro Bowls, receiving All-Pro honors, and setting record after record, he would be on a very short list of the best waiver claims our organization has ever made. Brett will always be considered one of the Titans family, and we wish him continued success in the years to come." A native of Grand Island, New York, Kern received All-American honors at Toledo before becoming an undrafted free agent with the Broncos. So, that being said, congratulations to Brett Kern on a fantastic career. I'm never going to forget. Honestly, my favorite memories of Brett Kern is his family lives around the Brentwood area. And, he's been around here so long. I grew up just as a Titans fan. I would be 13 years old and I'd walk into a restaurant and him and his family would be sitting there. And it was so cool that a Titans player was sitting down in the restaurant and I was sitting at a booth right next to him. And he's a really nice guy. Gotten to talk to him a little bit in the locker room. Very, very great family man. So hope he has a great retirement. He earned it. All right, JT, let's move on to mandatory minicamp. And we have 10 topics, 10 questions, 10 things that we're looking to see this week in the 3 days that we'll have media access at Titans mandatory minicamp. And we're going to go draft style just to kind of make this into a full-fledged segment, make a bit out of this. So I'll give you the honors here. If you'd like to start, what's the number one thing you are looking to see this week at Titans mandatory minicamp?
Yeah, I think the first and most obvious.
It has to be the obvious one.
The obvious one here is, does Kevin Byard show up? Mandatory minicamp has mandatory for a reason.
That's the first word in the title.
It is. So it'll be interesting to see if Kevin Byard shows up. Of course, still kind of in contract negotiations and restructuring. And like you said last week, you kind of give him until mandatory minicamp. And if he doesn't show up, then you kind of start hitting the panic button. If he doesn't show up this week, it's kind of go time.
That's what I was going to say. Like this is kind of I think for most people, this is the threshold between cautiously optimistic and really concerned. This is the thing. And frankly, maybe this is cynical, but I'm inclined to think even if he doesn't show up, a pretty decent segment of the fans will still just keep pushing that deadline back. Well, it's, it is early June. He'll be here by camp. He'll be here by camp. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I do think you should be worried if he does not show up to this because he'll be fined. That will be a kind of a real proper shot across the bow in this Cold War between Byard's camp and the Titans as they look to. And again, he's under contract. He's on the team. It's just the cap number at which he is slated to count against the Titans' books this year in the $19 million and change region is too much for an aging safety at a position that they desperately need him to play. We know that their depth it's 2, maybe 3 guys, if you include Byard, that you actually want on the field. And beyond that, you don't want to see that at all. So he's somebody that needs to show up. What is your feeling? I'll be pretty floored if he's not there personally.
I mean, just as how we talk about him, he's been team first for his entire basically tenure here for the Titans. He's always been a guy who puts the team first. He's one of the few leaders on this team that a lot of people look up to and is respected by both coaches and players. So if he doesn't show up, I too would be pretty surprised by his absence this week. But you never know with contract stuff like this. It's a lot of calling each other's bluffs. And this is a big time for Kevin Byard to see if he's going to call the Titans bluffs and vice versa. So it'll be interesting. And I'm sure that is the number one thing this week when all the media get there, they're going to be Kevin Byard.
Kevin here? Kevin. Exactly. The last thing I'll say on Kevin before we move on is if he doesn't show, which again, I think that he will, I'm pretty confident he's going to show up. If he doesn't, I think that it's going to be interpreted differently by different people. For me, it will be less, and it depends player by player. Like, for example, if Kristian Fulton didn't show up, I would feel like that was more reflective of or an indication of Fulton being a bonehead. And again, I'm not saying I'm not saying he is these things because I'm expecting him to be there as well. The player's a bonehead. This is them being way too aggressive. This is reflective of them and the team maybe not having a great intrapersonal relationship. With Byard, if he doesn't show, it's much less, in my mind, villainizing of Byard and much more. I'm having a hard time explaining this. I guess it would make me feel like this contract situation where the two camps are is way further apart than we ever clearly there's much more of an issue here, a more tangible problem than we believe at this point. I think that the level in my mind to which this contract is a serious flashing red light on the Titans dashboard rises significantly and is less of Kevin's just like, he's being stubborn. He doesn't actually want to be here. I think he wants to be here. So if he's not, I think that's going to be indicative of the front office having some real issues.
Yeah, I think so too. Because it's you mostly see this with a lot of big name stars, wide receivers, running backs,
like the OBJ types,
the Le'Veon Bell saga, the Deshaun Watson saga before everything went down. You never really see a safety be.
And I mean, he's a star. He's been a top 5 safety in the league for a couple years now. But you're right in terms of position.
And it's such it's not like, hey, I want a new contract. It's more like, hey, they want to pay me less money this year. So well,
that's the thing. Yeah, to be fair to Kevin, strange. All he's asking for is to play on the contract that he and the team agreed to
exactly
years ago. He's not asking for anything to change. The team wants something to change. So that I guess that would indicate to me that the team is saying we're going to get rid of. We're not letting you play on this number. So come to the table, or we're going to find a way to ship you off, get you off this team one way or another. That's what that tells me. And it's not Kevin being the line in the sand. It's the team putting the line in the sand.
And I guess that's how I kind of feel if he doesn't show up, because if the team is like, I don't want you to play on this contract, and they truly are just so far off in the numbers, why would he show up? If the team really does not want to value him at what his current contract values him, it makes sense not to show up. So if he doesn't, I'd be surprised. I'm not going down this whole diva road that you see a lot of wide receivers and other players take once they start not showing up to things.
We just know, we've got enough experience with Kevin Byard to know not a diva, definitively not a diva. He's not been pretending to not be a diva for the past 6-7 years, and suddenly this is the real him. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that. I'll make my first pick. And to kind of stay along the same lines here, let's talk about the other guy we've not really seen much of on the Titans secondary. And by not much of, I mean, we've not actually seen him out there at all yet. We just have word. We've been told. Sources are saying he's in town. And he's planning on being there at minicamp. That's Kristian Fulton, the Titans cornerback 1 in terms of talent and the way that they utilize him in a contract year. This is his 4th and final year of his contract. Obviously, the number one thing I'm looking for is just the vibes. What are the Kristian Fulton vibes this week? We know I say we know. We have a very, very good reason to believe that the vibes between Kristian Fulton and his head coach, the vibes between Kristian Fulton and the team and its culture, the aura of the team, what it stands for. It's not broken. That relationship is not broken by any means that we know of, but it certainly is strained. And we know that this is a big year for him, and that it's kind of a touchy subject when you talk to Mike Vrabel, when you talk to the position coaches. We talked to, his defensive backs coach on this past Wednesday or Tuesday, last week, midweek, I forget which day. Time is a flat circle. The message was basically, we know it's a big year for Kristian. He knows it's a big year for him. Contract year. He's got to show up to make money. That's how it goes. We expect to see him at minicamp. Is he going to be kind of cold and detached? What is the body language going to be like this week when we talk to him coming off the field? What is he going to have to say to us? Is it going to be very buttoned up and coach speaky, not really revealing anything, just kind of giving us non-answers? Is he going to kind of let his personality or maybe his personal viewpoints show a little bit, and the same way that Mike Vrabel has kind of a little bit let out in his statements that he's not, led us to believe that he's maybe not crazy about Kristian Fulton and the injury situation and the way that he goes about handling himself off the field from a, not a personal standpoint, but from a body standpoint, maintenance standpoint. Is Kristian Fulton going to kind of let that divide in their relationship show through a little bit? I think that's going to be pretty telling and one of the most interesting things this week. JT, do you think that it's going to, if you had to guess, do you think it's going to be more awkward or kind of business as usual with him?
I think, he kind of sort of played last week's OTAs as kind of like a half week, like showed up for half of it, in the middle of it. I think last week maybe you might have saw some more of that. Of course, media wasn't available for that, and so maybe for good reason.
They don't want us to see that stuff
behind closed doors. It maybe started off like that. I would assume that, like you said, it's a big year for Byard, and I'm assuming that starting mandatory minicamp this week, he's going to be business as usual, wanting to get on the right foot and start off this offseason program with a new fresh week. I mean, also it's very important for him to actually be here because of his injury history. I think with what the
new
team
coach
is now doing,
he's a brand new position coach.
I think it's pretty important for him to be here for at least the mandatory stuff. So we'll see. I'm hoping that it is business as usual. But
sure,
if it isn't, all the more interesting.
It'll make our job easy. Plenty to talk about. All right, what's your next draft?
I'm going to move over from the secondary position. Let's go to the two young quarterbacks. I'll start off with Will Levis. We talked about last week. As you said, Will Levis has had good days. He's had okay days. And then last week during media availability, he had a pretty bad day. It was rough. How is Will Levis trending this week?
Rookie quarterbacks, not super consistent in May and June.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But now that at mandatory minicamps, we'll get to see him not just during one period of practice, but over a couple of days. How is he trending with this offense, and kind of how is he getting it down? How is he looking? It'll be interesting to see him in a more elongated viewing window.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I would say that's an interesting thing for us to look at this week, but you must have missed it. We've seen him miss the entire net in a net drill on Twitter, and then we saw Anthony Richardson hit a net twice in a drill.
That's
on
crazy.
The bullseye. So I mean, that just means that Anthony Richardson is a future Hall of Famer, and Will Levis is not an NFL quarterback.
And I think when Shane Steichen was talking about that next level stuff, I think it was I think it was Anthony Richardson hitting the net twice instead of once. That really is the next level.
If I had to describe that in one word, it'd be next level. Yeah, 100%. No, I'm with you, and I think that's important. I am super excited to get to see him multiple days in a row because of what you said. It's about trends this time of year. It's about, not did you have a good day, did you have a bad day? It's did you have a good week? Did you have a good month? Did you put together more good days at the end of this month than you did at the beginning of this month? Are you trending in the right direction? Is it starting to click? That's what we want to see. And I'll just go ahead and go with the next guy. Like you said, my second pick, I'll go with Malik Willis, and specifically looking to see, does his continued attempt at mastery of some of those quarterbacking 100 level, 200 level things start to look good. I know that our guy, Paul Kaharski, whose show is also on the 440 podcast network, had a show earlier this week talking about what we heard from the new quarterbacks coach, Charles London from Atlanta, and how they're kind of working on 300 level quarterbacking right now with those guys in that room. You've got 3 guys at very different levels in terms of between the ears. You know, Ryan Tannehill, one of the most veteran guys in terms of knowledge in the league. Limitations are physical, but from a mental standpoint, he's seen pretty much all of it at this point in his decade plus career. Will Levis, young, raw, rookie, but coming from an NFL style program at an SEC school. So kind of middle of the road, I'd say, in that quarterback room. And then Malik Willis is the caboose and has been the caboose. And it's because he's come from Liberty. He played at a very gimmicky collegiate style school with a very collegiate style offense. And last year, those shortcomings, they showed. We saw what he lacked in terms of NFL pro style ball, being able to get from read 1 to 2 to 3 in a short amount of time, navigating the pocket, keeping your eyes downfield, not looking to tuck the ball and run, not panicking in the pocket, not accidentally rolling yourself into pressure instead of rolling out of pressure. Like that kind of thing was an issue for him. And also, you know, he's got a big arm, he's got a cannon, but the accuracy kind of can go out the window when he's panicking like that. And there were a number of throws where you saw him try to slot it in, hit a window that wasn't there or was too small to justify throwing the ball, making arm arrogance decisions, making poor decisions. And then simple things like just command of the huddle, body language, performance at the podium, all of these things, those are all quarterbacking 101, 201 level things that he's still working to get ironed out. And that's what he's focused on this offseason, as he should. We've seen positive things from him in that capacity in the couple of times we've seen him at OTA so far. So I'm mostly looking to see, is he going to continue those things? And can he get those things down pat so that he can be on the same level as the other 2 guys in terms of trying to master those quarterback 301 things, looking at different defensive coverages, trying to read defenses pre-snap, trying to be able to get through more progressions in a smaller amount of time and really hone that skill as a quarterback mentally back there in the pocket, knowing where to and not to look. That kind of thing he can't really get to until he gets these more fundamental things down. So does he have them down is what I'm looking to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see both of these guys as it kind of is a little bit of a QB race to be the backup, which is it's a quarterback competition.
Well,
to be
it's
the
a
backup,
fascinating case study, right? Because they're both limited, but in such different ways.
They're also 2 just very different quarterbacks
100%.
at the core of it. So it's hard to compare them, but the best you can do is compare their trends, and is one seem to be improving and one is not. Right. That's really all you can do with those 2, not necessarily compare them. I will move on here to talking about some receivers. There are a lot of new depth receivers on this team, and we've seen clips of them making some crazy catches, and we've seen clips of them just
looking like
messing
deck chairs and lawn furniture that they are.
Exactly. My question is, there are guys like Colton Dow, the 7th round pick of this year's draft, UDFA guys like Jacob Copeland, and we haven't heard a lot of him since he was at rookie camp, but even like a Georgia Kierce Jackson or any of these guys are making enough progress to maybe usurp some of the depth players like a Racy McMath or a Nick Westbrook-Akine or something like that. How are these guys performing? How are they being used in this offense? How are they fitting in with the team? And are they doing enough work right now to where it seems like they might be the new depth of this team?
No, I'm with you. And this is the time of year we're officially on who's going to be the camp darling watch, right? This is the time of year where even very bad players. Did you see the headline out of Pittsburgh?
I was about to bring that up, right?
Exactly. You can go on that, but we do have to mention that. That's mandatory.
Yeah, it's time to find who we're thinking is sneaky going to make this team.
And the Steelers have found him, baby. The Steelers
have found their darling in Dez Fitzpatrick.
Oh, baby. Dez Fitzpatrick, welcome to the
Ooh,
NFL. He just needs to
but
get to a competent wide receiver franchise. Clearly, now he's going to be a stud NFL player.
yes, exactly. But with a couple of these guys, not saying that we're going to mandatory minicamp this week and looking for these guys to become the next big thing for this team, but how are they progressing, and are they going to be doing enough to make this team and maybe be some viable options that improve the depth instead of just keep it as just deck chairs and lawn furniture?
Right. Let's take that a step further and look at the actual depth chart, which I have pulled up here. Let's take the guys that we know are going to make the team out of the equation. Traylon Burks is making the team. NWI is making the team. Kyle Phillips is making the team. Chris Moore is making the team. Those four are on the roster, barring some, God forbid, some horrendous injury to them. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other guys listed at wide receiver on this roster right now, fighting for between 1 and at most 4 additional spots. I'm expecting the Titans to keep 5, 6, maybe 7. You occasionally see a team keep 8 receivers, but this team's not keeping 8 receivers, even though it's technically possible. It ain't happening. There's not enough talent on this team for them to keep an 8th receiver. So I'd say between 5 and 7 receivers are going to make the 53-man roster, and 4 are already locked in. So the other 8 guys here are fighting for at most 3 spots. Who's going to claim them? Right. Let's take these guys and let's go each guy at a time, and right now put a percentage on them making the roster. Let's start at the bottom. Gavin Holmes. He's a rookie UDFA. I don't even know where he went to school. I'd say there's a 0% chance he makes the roster. Like it's just not. It's not happening. Right. Where would you place him?
I mean, you never know. I wouldn't say there's. I would say, yeah, I would for the sake of everything. I give him like maybe a 5% chance. Maybe
right. I'll give Gavin a fighting chance. I'll give him a 1%. That's the most I'll give him.
But yeah, he's a guy that I feel like is more of a just a
camp
body for camp. He went to Baylor though, so
true.
So the FBS school. So like
he's got a little pedigree, a little bit.
He does a little bit, but yeah. More of a UDFA body for camp. Okay,
Trayshawn Harrison out of Oregon State, another rookie UDFA. I'd kind of put him in the same territory personally.
I think I would too, yeah.
1 to 5% chance he makes the roster, very unlikely. Then you have Jacob Copeland. I'd say a much better shot. I'd say, I don't know, 25% chance, 30%
yeah,
chance.
I don't know if I'd go maybe 20. I think there's a 1 in 5 shot that he beats
1 in 5.
These other guys, because there are a couple guys on this roster who have a little bit of tenure, have been here, that have been often on the practice squad, who maybe are taking a next step to be that 5th or 6th receiver. But you never know.
You never know. Kyrus Jackson, speaking of never knowing, you mentioned him out of Georgia, also a UDFA. He's tricky because based on what we've seen so far, like a guy like Jacob Copeland is way more likely to make the roster because he's actually had some flashes at camp. Kyrus Jackson's not been out there. So it's tricky because I do trust his ability as much or more than a lot of these depth guys. Like I think that he has the ability physically to do it. But at this point, I don't know. I'd put a 10% chance he makes the roster.
Yeah, we just haven't seen enough of him out there to really say. I think based on what I've heard, and they seem to like him, and they're trying to get him to see what they have in him. So I would give him maybe a 10-15% chance. But I definitely, at this point, I would put Jacob Copeland over him.
Yeah, I would too. Now let's get to some cult classics. How about a little Mason Kinsey? Once again, time is a flat circle. We're trying to convince ourselves that Mason Kinsey is going to make this roster based on precedent alone. 5% chance.
I would have to agree. I would.
He is the man's man when it comes to practice squad body, but just this dude's not on the roster. It can't happen. I don't see it. Reggie Roberson, kind of the same deal. 5%, 10%. Then it becomes interesting. These last 2 guys, I'd say at least one of them is making the roster for sure. But I don't know which one. I know which one I'm leaning towards. You've got Racey McMath and Colton Dowell. Of those 2, who's more likely to make the team in your eyes?
Who's more likely to make it in my eyes, or who would I want to make it? That I feel like that's
answer. Are those two different answers?
I think they are currently.
Okay. Then what are the two different answers?
Now, based on that, I would say I think Racy would make it surefire. I want Colton, but I think honestly both of them have maybe a 70% chance, if not better, to make the team.
Yeah, I'm with you. It wouldn't shock me if it was those six, right? Burks, NWI, Phillips, Chris Moore, Colton Dowell, Racy McMath. That wouldn't shock me. I'd be surprised if Copeland was left out. Maybe he's the seventh guy. I'll tell you this though, from what I've seen from McMath, and I was, if you followed any of my coverage at all last training camp, I was drinking the Kool-Aid on Racy McMath in training camp. He looked really good. He looked like he could bring a vertical element to this team that they did not have previously. My faith has been shaken a decent amount in what Mr. McMath can bring to the table. Again, I've only seen 2 practices with him, and they were in May. So a lot can change. But as of right now, he does not look like a guy out there who's going to be winning a job on the 53-man roster. He's got a lot of work to do in my eyes to get to that point. Dowell, on the other hand, I'm so interested to see how they continue to use him this week, purely because they've been using him a lot. Like, they've been using him a lot. So far, even as a 7th round guy, I think they like him. Like, the body language tells me they like him. So I'd say right now there's like a 75-85% chance he makes the roster. I think they really like this guy.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's why I would lean towards both of them making it. Although I could really see Jacob Copeland kind of overtaking Racy McMath. Racy McMath is.
I'd say he's the biggest threat to those two making the team.
I think so. And just because he's been given a bunch of chances and it just really hasn't worked out. If they have some fresh guys come in there like a Jacob Copeland who look to just have a little bit more speed and a little bit or a little fresher, I think they might be able to maybe get faster and get a little bit younger, even though Racy isn't that old.
All right, I'll move on to my third pick. I'll go with tight end usage. I want to see how they use this tight end room. We've seen a little bit of it so far. I need more. Give me more sample size. All of this in this new offense is kind of getting down to what is this offense going to look like this year? And a big element of that is going to be the way that they deploy these tight ends, specifically their top 3 guys, Chigakonkwo, Trayvon Wesco, and Josh Wiley. Different questions with each. With Chig, I just want to see how, I mentioned last week, and this is really maybe tiptoeing the line of what I can and can't say from camp. So I've got to be careful, not trying to tick off anybody over at the Titans PR department, but they've been using Okonkwo in a lot of different ways. And the way they've been using him, it reinforces the idea in my mind that he's going to be a large consumer of targets in this offensive scheme this year. Like, besides Traylon Burks and maybe Kyle Phillips, those are the only 2 guys that I think are going to be targeted in the passing game more than Chigakonkwo, based on what we've seen so far at camp. They've been utilizing him a lot. He's been electric a lot because we love Chig, the prince that was promised. We are the Chig program here in town. So do they continue to do that? And do they continue to be creative in the ways that they line him up and utilize him? That's something that I want to see. Trayvon Wesco, where are you, bud? Like, you're on. Yeah. He's on the team. I've been informed he's on the team. I've been assured he's on the team. We've not seen him yet. He's injured with something. We don't know what, but like, where are you? We're going to need you out there. And if you're actually on the team, and these other 2 guys, like, if he's not out there, it changes the whole calculus of the tight end room. As I stammer over my words, he's supposed to be the blocking down guy. If he's not, then maybe Chig doesn't see quite the passing volume that we're expecting. Maybe Josh Wiley is not given a chance to be much of a passing threat early on, as I think he will be given a chance to be if they have Wesco utilized in the way that we're expecting them to utilize him. But he's not been out there. So where are you? And then finally, Josh Wiley, like, just show me something. We've seen some flashes from him. Big body guy, clearly an athlete. His teammate Chigakonkwo has ranted and raved about him as a guy who has a really firm understanding of route running, a firm understanding of offensive concepts, how to in zone maximize and poke holes in a defense, where to sit down in the soft part of a zone, how to get separation in man. All of these things from a craftsman standpoint as a route runner, he seems to have and be I think ahead of the curve as a young guy in that position. But let's see how they utilize him in the offense as they're running team drills. Is he somebody in there getting looks, or is it really all going to Chikakonkwo? That's what I'm most interested in, and I think it's going to be most telling how the tight ends are used in terms of the way that this passing game is going to look.
Yeah, Josh Whyle is probably the tight end this week that I'm most interested to see. I've been on this program since the draft. He wasn't my favorite pick out of all the very many tight end options that were good options. He would have not been my first, but I'm interested. I'm willing and open, as I have been since they drafted him, to have my mind changed and have and become a Josh Whyle fan. So I'm interested to see how he's used more in a bigger sample size this week.
Yeah,
we move on here. Let's go to let's go back to the secondary here, because something we talked about during the first round of OTAs was Elijah Molden. He was taking a lot of drills and a lot of snaps in this OTA practice at
safety. Do you mean safety Elijah Molden, or do you mean cornerback Elijah Molden?
Is
that the question?
That is the question.
Okay.
I think that is the question. Which one are we going to see this week?
Sure.
If he is still taking some snaps at safety, is that where he starts to move? Are we starting to see him maybe move over there? Because as we've said before on the show, the depth of the safety position for the Titans is very thin. Scraping the bottom of the barrel after you get past the starting guys. So
Hooker, Byard, maybe Molden, and then
not a lot there to be had. So will we see Elijah Molden at safety during these mandatory minicamp, or is he moved back towards the cornerback position? That'll be pretty interesting, I think, to watch this week.
I'm with you, and it'll only be interesting to me. The reason we've seen him play a lot at safety the past two practices media has been allowed to be at is because the first one, Kevin Byard, was gone. And then the second one, Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker were gone. So we need both of them to be back to get an accurate reading. We need to find out, are they playing him at safety in practice out of necessity, or are they doing it more because they want to see him moved to safety? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll be interesting once the gang's all back. Where does
Hopefully
Elijah Molden
back? And if they are, is he still playing back there? Right.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting.
My next one, I'll go. We've kind of danced around this one, so I'll get it out of the way. Just as many clues as we can gather on this new offense. We've seen a little bit, but what are some more clues that we're given? And again, some of these things I've gathered from camp. I've had to keep to myself or talk to JT off the record because we'll get in trouble if we talk about it on the broadcast. But a number of them we've been able to talk about so far, and a number of them have been spoken about at the podium by coaches and players, and it's all positive. The vibes are high, JT, on this new offense. The vibes are high on what it's going to allow them to do, how they're going to look different this year. Everything that we've seen and heard indicates that this team offensively is going to look a good deal different this year than they have the past couple of seasons. All under, the past couple of seasons have all been the same West Coast style of offense, been that Shanahan style of offense with Art Smith, and then with dude who got fired last year, who I'm
Todd Downing.
Todd Downing, thank you. And now Tim Kelly coming in, bringing in a new verbiage, the earned hard something. I forget. Mike Herndon wrote a great piece on it. It's a brand new language for the offense that is kind of old school, but they're utilizing it in a new school way, with new school concepts. So that's something that is interesting to me. I find interesting in terms of, we feel like we know what Titans football offensively looks like because it's been the same the past 4 or 5 seasons. With a big change, just how different is that? I think that as we get more and more clues, that's something that'll be interesting to key in on.
I think so too. And it honestly, fans and national media alike, I think, may be a little bit surprised by this new offense from
I can tell you right now, based on the way that they've been creative with like positionless ball players in the backfield, tight ends utilized differently, running backs utilized differently, receivers utilized differently. I feel at liberty to talk about that because it's been mentioned on a number of different programs by different folks in the media, but like a lot of pre and post snap motion, a lot of movement by position. That's all new to this Titans team. We've not seen a ton of that from them in recent years. And if that's true, like a true indicator of what they're going to look like this year, buckle up.
Yeah, I think there'll be a couple people who assume that it's just Derrick Henry and running the ball, like same Titans football running it back. I think might be in for a little bit of surprise. 2 questions here left. I'm going to go with one that it's probably not. These last two questions are a little. I think a little boring. We're looking at some of the parts of the team that aren't talked about a lot, and I think one that has kind of gone
boring but important.
Yes, definitely important. Kind of a position on this team that's gone under the radar is the linebacking core. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of key exits with Zach Cunningham being cut and David Long Jr. being signing with Miami. What is this new kind of shakeup in the linebacking core going to look like? You get Harold Landry back, so that's always nice. Yep. But then do we see Monty Rice kind of take a step and become a pivotal player that's going to start each game? How does Azeez Al-Shaair look? And besides that, I mean, behind them there isn't a great deal of
Luke
depth.
Gifford, Ben Neiman, Jack Gibbons, Chance Campbell, Otis Reese the fourth. Who?
So
what?
Like a lot of guys, and then maybe even with that, we've talked a little bit about this kid in Caleb Murphy who set records at FCS ball. Will he be able to make this team and maybe provide that depth and rotational piece that they need on this defense?
No, I'm with you. I think it is another pretty thin position, and you're right. Monty Rice and Azeez Al-Shaair need to hit. I'm confident Azeez Al-Shaair will be fine. I don't know quite what his ceiling looks like, but I think at worst he's serviceable. Monty Rice, if he's on the field, will be serviceable, but can he stay healthy? Like he's already dealing with another injury right now, and it's May and June, so that's a real concern for me as well. The last one that we'll talk about here before we get out. Trey Wolff, I'm back on it. Yes, I'm going to continue to mention Trey Wolff. Does he? I
left that one for you because
I appreciate
you're putting your eggs in just one basket.
I am. I got my chips on Trey Wolff to win this kicker position for the Titans. Do they continue to use him in practice as a guy getting, the starter looks? Is he looking like and being used like the guy who's going to be the guy? That's what I'm interested to see. I think that they're going to. I think that they're going to continue to give him opportunities, continue to demonstrate their faith in him. But we'll get 3 practices in a row to kind of feel that out this week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think the more and more you talk about it, I think I'm hopping on the Trey Wolff train. Yep.
All right. That's it for today. Those are the 10 things we're looking for out of OTAs this week. We'll be able to talk about all of them on Wednesday. We'll do a show. Maybe it'll be live, maybe not. Probably live, but not quite sure yet what that'll look like. We'll have a show Wednesday talking about the first 2 days out there at mandatory minicamp. And then on Friday, we'll recap everything that we saw, all 3 days, talk about it all, and then kind of transition into the off season. Until then, everybody have a great start to your week. For producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Enjoy all the content from mandatory minicamp this week. Have a good one. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.